The whole band was riding in the truck when evening fell and the cold cut to the bone. Suddenly, they hit an icy stretch of road and the truck started to skid. The vehicle was thrown sideways onto the shoulder and an oncoming Jeep crashed into it. John Zazula, known as Johnny Z, and his wife Marcia worked at Rock and Roll Heaven, a small record and cassette store in East Brunswick, New Jersey. The shop was popular among true metalheads thanks to its selection of obscure metal bands and European releases. One spring morning in 1983, a customer handed Johnny Z a cassette and told him he absolutely had to hear it. At the time, Rock and Roll Heaven had a strict policy against playing demo tapes. However, Zazula took the cassette labeled Metallica and put it into the player anyway. It was like a lightning strike. He was deeply impressed and immediately decided to contact the band by calling K.J. Doughton, whose phone number was on the cassette and who had recently written an article about Metallica. John scooped up the loose change from the cash register and ran to the nearest payphone on the street. On the other end of the line, he was told that someone would be in touch with him soon. John and Marcia also ran a company called Crazed Management, which promoted underground metal shows. Several concerts were already being planned. So, when Lars called Zazula back the next day, Johnny Z impulsively offered Metallica the chance to come out and play all 12 upcoming shows as an opening act for Venom and the Rods. Lars discussed the offer with the rest of the band, and it was unanimously accepted. However, one major question remained: how to get themselves and their equipment from San Francisco to New Jersey, and where to live once they arrived. At the time, the Zazula family was barely making ends meet following a court case. Johnny Z was serving a 6-month sentence in a halfway house after being convicted of conspiracy to commit fraud, a charge he always denied. During the week, he stayed at the facility, returning home only on weekends. Despite all this, Johnny Z found a solution. He pulled money from the business, sent the band $1,500 for travel expenses, and offered them a place to stay at his family home. Metallica, along with Mark Whitaker, who became their tour manager, loaded their gear into a rented 24-foot U-Haul truck, hooked a small pickup to the back, and hit the road. To save time, they decided to drive non-stop, taking turns behind the wheel. By the time they reached Wyoming, it was already evening. The truck hit an icy stretch of highway and began to skid. The driver lost control. That driver was Dave Mustaine. The next day, Cliff wrote the following to his girlfriend, Audrey.
Dear Aud, how you doing? If my writing looks a little shaky, it's because I'm in the back of the truck going down the highway. We just pulled out of Wyoming. It's about 4 a.m. Last night we had a little mishap. Dave was driving, and me and Lars were in the cab when we came upon a very icy part of the highway. Dave lost control, and we went totally sideways in this 24-foot truck with a small pickup truck hooked on the back. We slid off the road and came to a stop. We got out, looked around, and after a couple of minutes, an oncoming Jeep started skidding around and slammed into the cab of our truck. Luckily, no one was in the cab, but Mark was almost in the way. He heard us yelling and moved. Half the cars coming down the highway we could see getting sideways. Another guy spun off the road about 200 feet behind us. And about 2 minutes down the highway ahead of us, a big rig with 2 big trailers, hazardous materials, flipped off the road and smashed to pieces. It was really insane. We couldn't sit in the truck while waiting for the tow truck because we might have gotten hit again by another out-of-control vehicle. My feet got so cold standing in the snow I thought I might lose my toes to frostbite. But after a bit, the tow truck came and drove us to town Laramie, where we got a motel room for the night. It's cold in the back of this truck. Snow everywhere. It's nice to look at, but it's too f***ing cold.
The next day, the band transferred their equipment into another truck and continued the journey. About 7 o'clock that night, they stopped to eat. Dave and Mark Whitaker got into a huge fight. Everyone was sober by then except Dave, and after a while, he passed out in the back. Ulrich later recalled, Dave couldn't control himself in different situations. In the long run, that was going to be a problem. we decided to look for a replacement guitarist somewhere between Iowa and Chicago. A week after leaving the Bay Area, the band stood at the doorstep of John and Marcia Zazula's house, unwashed, unshaven, and exhausted. Once invited inside, they immediately began drinking all the alcohol in the house without hesitation. Johnny Z started to wonder what kind of questionable venture he had sunk his last money into. The family had essentially sacrificed their ability to pay the mortgage and even heating bills. They had to watch as the guys vomited everywhere and tried to sleep with every girl in the neighborhood. Except for Cliff, he was different. Cliff even helped put John and Marcia's young daughter to bed and read her bedtime stories. While searching the house for more alcohol, the band eventually drank an expensive bottle of champagne the couple had been saving since their wedding. This became too much. Zazula rented a cheap rehearsal space for the band at Music Building in Queens, where they moved in. They slept on cold floors and sleeping bags, using jackets as pillows. New York in 1983 was harsh and was breaking crime records. In the next room of the same building, Anthrax were rehearsing. That's where the two bands first met. Metallica played their first East Coast show on April 8th at the Paramount Theater on Staten Island, alongside Vandenberg and the Rods. The following day, Dave once again caused problems when the same lineup was preparing to play at L'Amour Club. Vandenberg were running late with their sound check, trying to fine-tune their sound. Tired of waiting, Dave shouted at Vandenberg's lead guitarist that their band sucked and nobody cared about them, then told them to get off the stage. Mustaine frequently became aggressive and was difficult to control. It felt like patience had run out. Lars and James were already looking for a replacement. Mark Whitaker suggested Kirk Hammett, who at the time was the lead guitarist of Exodus. James and Lars remembered Kirk well. Both bands had played shows together in San Francisco and hung out at the Metallica mansion. Lars recalled, "One night in early March, James and I were talking. In the background, an Exodus tape was playing because Mark Whitaker was managing them at the time. We thought, wait a minute, it almost sounds like there's a real guitarist there." It sounded pretty good, like what we were looking for in terms of fast metal. The call came to Hammett's house on April 1st. While he was sitting on the toilet, Whitaker offered Kirk the chance to join Metallica. Kirk thought it was a prank and hung up. Interestingly, the first time he had seen Metallica live, he thought, "These guys are great, but they could be even better if I were in the band." The next day, when Whitaker called back and said he had mailed Kirk a tape of Metallica songs to learn, Kirk took it seriously. Without waiting for the tape to arrive, he got a copy from a friend and started learning the material. All of this happened just 8 days before Metallica's first New York show. On the morning of April 11th, the three band members and Mark Whitaker stood together in a room while Dave was still asleep. James tapped him on the shoulder, woke him up, and told him he was no longer in the band. Dave asked, "No warning? No second chance?" They just shrugged and said, "No." It was a strange scene, everyone staring at the ceiling or the floor as if someone had died or was about to be executed. Dave realized there was no point in arguing. The decision was final. He asked one question, "When is my flight?" Lars didn't have money for a plane ticket and had already bought a Greyhound bus ticket leaving at 10 a.m. A 4-day trip during which Dave would be alone with his thoughts about being fired and about his future. While Kirk Hammett loaded his gear and boarded a red-eye flight from San Francisco to the East Coast, James drove Dave to the bus terminal. They hugged goodbye, and James said, "Take care of yourself." Before leaving, Dave gave them one final warning. "Don't use my music."
Don't use my music. Do not use my music. Of course they did.